invited us, and I think they were from Pikes Peak, some speakers about, kind of care and mental health and those types of things. And one of the things that was sort of a positive thing for our college is they said, it appears that you guys really do a lot of the preventive, right? And so we don't have as much of the conduct because we're really dealing it from the care standpoint before it becomes conduct. And I thought, yeah, that's probably true because our conduct has significantly gone down, and we don't seem to see a lot of the real serious conduct that I think some of the other institutions do. And I don't know what, maybe it's the location, I'm not sure, but we don't have a lot of the really serious conduct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, anything else on the compartmentalization thing?
I don't think so.
Awesome. So the compass thing, we were talking about the compass, remember?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't remember. Like the center. Yeah, I know. I think that wasn't it Jake that was saying something, and I don't, Yeah, so you have to help me with what you mean for that.
So the group sort of was talking about how what do we use to navigate all the pieces of work that we do. Yeah. And so Jake used the term compass, and then we started to explore like what are the guiding principles that help us navigate these complex issues and sometimes emotional issues. And so we started talking about if we were to make like a theoretical compass, one way would be north, and I'll throw out a thought I had. So maybe the north is our policies and, the laws and stuff that we work by. And then another direction might be, actually I'm pulling out my little sketch because I've been talking about it. So one could be, well, here we go. So there's a bunch of pieces that were thrown out, and I don't know how to organize them yet, so I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
But, so we have like our codes of conduct. We have our roles and responsibilities in our job description. We have
education and training.
Yeah, and the mission of being an educational institution. And so there's all these factors that come into play when we're making a decision about a case or handling a case. And so what is it that guides us? Is there something?
Yes. So I think for me, what guides me is I'm trying to think how exactly I want to say this. I believe that everybody at different times in their lives or different stages in their lives can make decisions that sometimes have a negative impact on others, right? And so there's a lot of things that contribute to that. So, their own personal, life history, jobs, money, blah, blah, blah. And for me, what makes the center of what I do or how I look at this is that I believe that people sometimes make a bad judgment, make a mistake, react in situations that normally they wouldn't react in. And so for me, it's about taking responsibility and learning the educational component about what caused them to come to me, right? Why did they get reported? What was the incident about? How can they move forward, right? Because I think that for me, I look at it when somebody does something, depending on the severity, obviously, I'm like, hey, take ownership of your piece and what happened. and how can you prevent that from happening again, right? Mm-hmm. And if it does happen again, this is the penalties that will increase, right? So we'll go from warning to probation, suspension, expulsion. I don't have a high recidivism rate. I think that, when I have conversations with students, it is more about, hey, you might not have known, but that's not allowed here, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be allowed in the workplace. And how are you going to manage that behavior so that it doesn't happen again? So for me, it's the educational component and understanding that we all, well, I don't know, we had a speaker a year or so ago, maybe a couple years ago, and it said we are all criminals, right? And it was interesting because everybody has probably done something that had they got caught, they could be considered a criminal in some aspect, right? And that some people, unfortunately, get caught and do some really bad things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. Mm-hmm. They just need to be shown a different way. So I like to provide a different way. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, taking notes.
That's okay.
So, do you have any other thoughts on kind of those pillars of navigation? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I think as an individual practitioner doing this type of work, you have to have a strong sense of yourself, mm-hmm. and strong belief in people and the possibility for change, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to be open-minded, to be willing to forgive, willing to take responsibility yourself, mm-hmm. Take ownership for things. And I think that's something, that we're accepting the fact that we're not perfect either, right? Mm-hmm. And that there are things that in our lives that we could have done or we may have done depending on the circumstance. So I guess empathy is really the big thing, right? Is mm-hmm. to be able to step in somebody else's shoes and see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is, but then still hold people accountable, right? I mean, I get it, I understand it, but it doesn't mean that you're still going to receive a sanction, right? Mm-hmm. We're still going to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and you can choose not to answer this question. I'm curious, though. Okay. Do you have, that you're willing to share, a faith identity or a spiritual identity?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very much at all a faith person. I think a lot of people are surprised by that, but I do not.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate
You're
that.
You're
welcome. So then you had brought up during the focus group, which I loved, you brought up the training thing. Mm-hmm. Because it had been on my mind when I was formulating questions and kind of thinking about the work. Yeah. But I loved how you kind of put it out there and then what the group came up with. Basically that it's because you're wearing so many hats, you need to be trained on many levels. Mm-hmm. And then the funding thing that you mentioned before, mm-hmm. That's not always provided.
Right.
Which puts us into another level of conflict with the work.
And the policies and procedures.
Right.
Compliance, federal compliance even.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, just along the lines of the training thing, I wanted to explore that a little more. For what you do, what trainings are important for your work? So,
I think I expressed that for the first, I would think 9 years or so that I did this work, I had no training. Mm-hmm. there was no training. I didn't even know that there was trainings that existed for student conduct professionals. Or, I think CARE maybe a little bit more because that came more in the last few years.